The world isn't fair. It never was. Life is rigged. Not by chance. Not by fate. But by men who learned the rules, then rewrote them in shadow. They bend perception. They build illusions. And they use those illusions to own you. I know because I lived as their victim. I once believed in fairness, in merit, in honesty, in effort. Until the day I watched a weaker man, slower, lazier, dumber, walk away with everything I had earned. It wasn't talent. It wasn't work. It was power. Quiet, invisible power. The kind that bends rooms without raising a hand. That was the day I learned. The world doesn't reward the worthy. It rewards the ruthless. Think about your own life. Haven't you felt it? The friend who betrayed you with a smile. The colleague who charmed his way past your sweat. The relative who twisted stories until you became the villain. The game was never fair. It was rigged from the start. And every time you cling to fairness, you tighten the rope around your own neck. Machiavelli warned us centuries ago. Power is practical. Perception outruns merit. Skill alone means nothing. If no one sees you, you don't exist. If someone controls the story, your work vanishes. If the weaker man appears stronger, he takes everything. This is the law of survival. The law no parent, no teacher, no mentor dares to tell you. Because once you know it, you can no longer be controlled. So I'll ask you directly, do you want to be ruled, or do you want to rule? Do you want to die invisible, or learn how the unseen hand seizes respect? Type it in the comments now. I choose survival, because this is only the first strike, the first fracture in the pretty lie, and the deeper we go, the darker it gets. Fairness was the first lie, but it wasn't the last. The world isn't fair, and neither is respect. Right now, while you read this, someone weaker is eating your future. He smiles, you stay polite, he wins. Being right is no armor. Silence is its coffin. I learned that the hard way. There was a night years ago when I sat in a dim apartment, the glow of a single lamp bleeding across promotion papers I would never sign. That day the applause went to another man. A man with fewer skills, weaker results, but a louder smile. He stood at the front of the room, soaking in validation that should have been mine. And I, silent, dutiful, invisible, clapped for my own replacement. Have you ever felt it? That slow suffocation, when you realize no one sees your effort, only your absence of power. I felt it in the tightening of my chest, in the betrayal of colleagues who knew my worth yet cheered for a fool. Even my closest friend leaned in, whispered, "Don't take it personally." But it was personal. It was war disguised as office politics, and I had already lost. That night I couldn't sleep. The truth cut clear, merit hides. Performance wins. Image is currency. Silence is bankruptcy. I remember gripping the edge of my bed, whispering to myself, never again. Never again would I hand my destiny to lesser men. Never again would I play the polite servant, waiting for fairness that never comes. Machiavelli warned, he who adapts survives, and he who clings to virtue alone perishes. I began to see his words not as theory, but as law. Adaptation is survival. If I refused to learn the game, I would remain its victim. If I studied it, if I embraced its ruthlessness, I could become its master. That was the night I stopped being invisible. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because I did. I chose to become unreadable, to speak less but with intent, to let silence feel like power, not weakness, to turn every gesture into a calculated move on a board most men never notice. And here's the secret. It only took one decision, one action, to alter how everyone saw me. One action that transformed me from background furniture into a presence that demanded respect. But that I will reveal when we reach Principle 3. For now, remember this, invisibility is not safety, it is slow death. And the first step to survival is to be seen. Type I choose survival if you've ever felt the sting of being ignored. Because after tonight you'll never allow it again. Principle number 1. Fairness is a trap. Psychological caging. Fairness is a trap. Fairness whispers mercy. It is a leash dressed as a promise. You hear it in polite voices. You taste it in apologies. You swallow it because you were taught to believe in justice. I used to hand out credit like coins, public praise, private notes. I wrote his name on every slide. I introduced him as my partner. I told bosses his part was critical. I built him up with my own hands. Then he smiled at the right table. He took a line I had written and made it his punchline. The room leaned in. The room believed the performance, not the ledger. And I, his architect, was erased. My friend later told me with a whisper and a wink, "Let it go." Even family shifted stories until the liar's version became the truth. Betrayal tastes like that. Warm mouths rewriting your life while you watch. How many chances have you given to someone who never changed? How many times did you wait for fairness to arrive like a guest who never shows? Rigged, rigged, rigged. Machiavelli warned, men judge more from appearances than from reality. He was not poetic, he was precise. Perception is the gatekeeper. Merit stands behind a locked door. Image sits on the throne. So what does a man do when mercy is a leash? You stop relying on mercy. You stop praying for justice. And you start building boundaries that run on logic, not feelings. Systems, not speeches. Records, not reminders. Consequences, not complaints. Imagine a gilded cage, beautiful bars, golden promises. You live inside, thinking you are safe because the gold is pretty. But the door is still a door, and others close it whenever they please. Your politeness becomes your shackle. Your patience becomes their tool. You must convert moral hope into structural power. Document your contributions. Make credit public by design. Create natural consequences for theft, ownership in writing, minutes recorded. Systems that remove access when abuse repeats. Turn generosity into an invitation with terms. Turn patience into a measured currency. This is not cruelty. It is survival engineering. Fairness will not save you. Only mechanisms will. Only design will strip advantage from the charming thief. But remember this. Rules alone are brittle if you are moved by every insult. The trap of fairness is broken not by outrage, but by cold, disciplined response. I learned that the day my own sister repeated a lie so convincingly, my family accepted it as truth. She didn't mean to ruin me. She simply preferred the easier story. Family bends for convenience, and betrayal always begins as a small kindness. Until it rewrites your history. Principle number 2, ruthlessness. Emotional discipline. Ruthlessness is not rage. Ruthlessness is an internal frost. It preserves. It does not explode. Most men misunderstand it. They think ruthlessness means breaking jaws, shouting in anger, making scenes. But true ruthlessness is not fire, it is ice. Fire burns fast and reveals weakness. Ice endures, silent, patient, until it cracks stone itself. I learned this in a crowded room. A man desperate for attention decided to humiliate me with a joke. He dragged my name into his performance, twisting facts into mockery. Laughter echoed, eyes turned, and every nerve in me wanted to strike back, to lash out, to defend my pride, but I didn't. I let silence hang like a blade above him. I looked at him unblinking, as if he were beneath notice. No anger, no smile, just stillness, and it worked. Hours later, the same people who had laughed began to turn against him. His desperation showed. His cruelty looked cheap. My silence made his noise look like weakness. That was the moment I understood. Ruthlessness isn't cruelty. It's discipline. It's refusing to give your enemy the performance they crave. It's patience sharpened into a weapon. Machiavelli warned, if you must strike, strike once and decisively. Weak men flinch. They react. They drag the fight on with emotion. Strong men wait. They detach, and then they act, in one cold move that ends the game. Ask yourself, how many times have you exploded, only to regret giving away control? How many times have you made an enemy look stronger, simply because you reacted too soon? Next time someone baits you, imagine this. Their words are hooks flung into icy water. You are the frost. Hooks do not bite into ice. They snap, they rust. They fall useless. And when the time is right, when it truly serves your power, you respond. Not with anger, but with precision, the cold strike, the single move. The move that humbles without a word raised. But this is only the beginning. Because silence and frost can protect you, yes. But to command respect, you must go further. You must learn the secret act that changes how everyone sees you. The act I promised when we reach Principle 3. Principle number 3. Perception is the new reality, image as armor. No one ever meets the full you. They meet the signs you leave behind. Echoes, fragments, shadows stitched into an image. That image becomes your armor or your coffin. I once watched two men fight for the same board seat, both skilled, both intelligent, both deserving. One arrived with a stack of notes, eager to prove himself through words. The other arrived in silence. He spoke little. He let posture, wardrobe, timing, and association do his talking. He didn't need to convince anyone. The room had already decided he belonged. Guess which man walked away with power? This is the trap. We are taught that reality is shaped by effort. That substance outweighs signal. But in the arena of power, perception is the gatekeeper. Machiavelli warned, men judge more from appearances than from reality. He wasn't exaggerating. He was handing you the only blueprint that still rules today. Ask yourself, how often have you been overlooked, not because you lacked talent, but because you lacked presence? How many times have you watched weaker men command respect, simply because they knew how to stage themselves? Here's the brutal rhythm. People don't see your hours of work. They don't measure the depth of your thought. They only register cues, posture, timing, association. Signals, not essence. So craft the signals. Curate the armor. Your walk must speak before your mouth does. Your timing must cut sharper than any speech. Your circle must signal weight long before you open your own mouth. Start with this 3-move arsenal first. Posture. Straight spine. Controlled movements. Deliberate stillness. Nothing screams power like economy of motion. Second, timing. Don't rush to speak. Let silence carve the space, then deliver words like blades. Third, association. Stand next to power even if it's borrowed. Proximity is perception. People assume you share its strength. These 3 alone will shift how the world registers you tomorrow. Simple? Yes, but once stacked, repeated, layered, they forge an aura that shields you before you even step into battle. But perception isn't just armor. It is also a weapon, a shield that blinds others, a mask that misleads enemies, and that is where the game darkens further, because the next principle isn't about defense. It's about wielding deception itself. Principle number 4. Narrative control, frame or be framed events are raw. Stories are the blade that shapes them. I learned this in blood, not in theory. A conflict at work, sharp and sudden. A colleague made a mistake, a costly one, but before I could even speak, he told his version. He framed it as my oversight, calmly, publicly, and the room believed him. By the time I opened my mouth, it was too late. The first story had sealed the verdict. Have you felt that sting? When truth doesn't matter, because the story already won. That night I walked home with my chest burning, repeating the word in my head, framed. Not by facts, not by proof, but by narrative, rigged, rigged, rigged. Machiavelli understood this. He warned that men don't see reality. They see interpretation. He who frames first owns the lens. He who speaks last defends against a shadow. Think of a courtroom. 2 versions of the same event collide. Jurors don't vote for reality. They vote for which frame feels sharper. Think of the battlefield. The victor is not just the one who survives, but the one who writes the account of survival. History is not truth, it is narrative embalmed in ink. So how do you survive in your world? You pre-frame. You prepare. You never let others tell the story before you do. If you make a bold move, you announce it with your frame, not theirs. If you face betrayal, you strike first with your version. Cold, concise, believable, because silence is surrender. And delay is defeat. Ask yourself, how many times did you let others explain your own actions, while you stood quiet, praying fairness would arrive? It never does. Only narrative wins, and here is where strategy sharpens into a weapon. I built a system, a 3-sentence frame that lets me take any conflict, any accusation, any twist, and own it. Not with endless words, not with desperate defense, but with cold narrative control, and I'll show you exactly how I do it. But first, you need to understand the darker law that governs all trust, why every bond you believe in is more fragile than glass. Principle number 5. Decisive action creates unquestionable power threats. Whisper. One real strike shouts and echoes forever. Most men waste their power in fragments. They bark, they warn. They repeat the same empty threats until their words rot into noise. Weak fathers, weak bosses, weak leaders, always promising consequences that never arrive. And every time they delay, their power drains. I once endured months of the same betrayal. A colleague late, sloppy, careless, and I covered him again and again. I warned him once, twice, 10 times. He smirked, knowing my patience was his shield. Each warning made me weaker, not stronger. Then I changed. I documented every failure. I built a file. And on the day of his final mistake, I didn't argue. I didn't warn. I didn't rage. I acted one clean motion. His access revoked. His chair emptied. His face frozen in disbelief. No noise. No theater. Just an ending. The silence that followed was heavier than any speech I could have given. The office shifted. People looked at me differently. Respect wasn't requested. It was installed. Machiavelli warned, men must either be crushed or left alone. Never half punished. Never half disciplined. A wound that does not kill will always fester into revenge. But a decisive act, cold, irreversible, teaches more than 1,000 threats. Ask yourself, would you trade 3 months of noise for one clean outcome? How many hours of your life have you wasted repeating yourself to those who never listen? Decisive action is not recklessness. It is preparation sharpened into inevitability. You build your case. You choose your moment. You execute once. And then you never repeat yourself, because power is not in how often you speak. Power lives in the weight of your silence after a single strike. But here is the darker secret. Decisive acts create fear, yes, but fear fades, unless you control what fills the silence after. And that is where the final lesson begins. The prophecy of power, the moment where wolves circle, and only those who embrace survival walk out unbroken. Principle number 6. Systemize consequences. Remove you from the drama. When people can't bargain with your mood, they bargain with your system. And systems win. Most men collapse because their boundaries are tied to emotion. Catch them on a good day, they forgive. On a bad day, they explode. Their power swings like a broken gate in the wind. And people learn quickly. All they need to do is wait. Wait for weakness. Wait for guilt. Wait for that soft moment. I learned this the hard way. Friends who never paid me back. Family who showed up empty-handed, always forgetting. I tried to confront them. Drama, excuses, guilt trips. Until one day I stopped arguing. I created a rule. If you RSVP for dinner, you pay in advance. No exceptions. The freeloaders disappeared overnight. No fights, no negotiations, just silence. My system had done the killing for me. That's the lesson Machiavelli whispers from the grave. Convert emotional authority into structural inevitability. Don't beg for respect. Don't waste breath in debates. Build rules like iron doors, cold, silent, unmovable. Ask yourself this: who controls your life right now? You can't, or the endless pleas, tears, and manipulations of others. If they can bargain with your mood, they own you. If they're forced to bargain with your system, you own them. Here's how you weaponize it. 5 steps. Ruthless, simple, effective. Step 1. Define the rule. Clear, brutal, undeniable. Step 2. Write the consequence. Automatic, not emotional. Step 3. Announce once, only once. Step 4. Enforce without debate. No bargaining, no delay. Step 5. Repeat until obedience becomes natural. That's it. Your fortress stands. Imagine what happens when your time, your money, your loyalty all sit behind gates of stone. No begging, no persuasion, no arguments. Just laws, and when they break them, they don't face your mood, they face the machine you built. Because here's the hidden truth: systems outlive moods. Systems outlive pity. Systems outlive guilt, and yet there's an even darker level. Systems don't just protect you. They erase you from the battlefield entirely. While others exhaust themselves in arguments, you are untouchable. But what happens when your silence itself becomes terrifying? When people fear not just your anger, but the machine behind you? That is where the next principle begins. The prophecy of power sharpened into inevitability. Principle number 7. Silent dominance. Let your work roar, not your mouth. The loudest in the room are advertising. The quiet have already bought the house. Noise is the mask of the powerless. Silence is the weapon of kings. Every room you've entered has been filled with men scrambling for attention, choking the air with words, each syllable begging to be noticed. But the one who says nothing, he terrifies them. He makes them guess. He makes them lean forward, desperate to know what he knows, and type, "I choose survival," if you see the truth. I learned this watching a man I once underestimated. He never boasted, never argued. He nodded, he smiled, he observed, and while the talkers bled energy, he placed allies quietly, piece by piece, like a chess endgame forming in the shadows. When the decision finally came, his name was on everyone's lips, though he never once raised his own voice. That's when I understood. Silence builds empires. Machiavelli's warning was clear. Let your work roar, not your mouth. Operate unseen. Let your enemies exhaust themselves in speeches while you arrange the stage. And when the curtain rises, the applause belongs to you. But how do you do it? Here are 3 silent moves, quick, lethal, and effective. First, withhold public praise. The man you compliment openly becomes arrogant. The man you leave guessing keeps fighting for your approval. Power comes from the chase. Second, place allies instead of yourself. The loud man builds a throne of noise. The strategist builds a web of quiet influence. When your people speak for you, your silence becomes a crown. Third, vanish at the peak. When noise rises, leave the room. Leave the stage. Leave the conversation. They will interpret your absence as strength, as superiority, as command. The ghost of your silence will echo longer than their speeches. Ask yourself, why do wolves hunt silently while sheep bleat? Because sound is weakness. Because noise is panic. Because survival belongs to the one who stalks unseen. The system is rigged in favor of those who control perception. And silence, properly used, bends perception like iron. But silence is only the beginning. What comes next is darker. What comes next is prophecy. The wolves are waiting. The sheep are panicking. The field is set, and you are not sheep. You are the one who walks unseen, the one who strikes without warning, the one who survives. Choose survival. Theory without a march is just rhetoric. Movement makes rulers. Words are wind unless chained to action. Machiavelli never wrote for dreamers. He wrote for survivors. For men who turned ink into empire. You've heard the principles. Now you need the war plan. 30 days, daily strikes, weekly campaigns, measurable conquest. Because power is not won by wishing, it's won by ritual. Type, I choose survival if you see the truth. I once watched a man take this path. He wasn't stronger than his rivals. He wasn't richer. But he was disciplined. Week 1. He reshaped his posture, his calendar, his image. Within 7 days, his boss deferred to him in a meeting. Not because his ideas had changed, but because his signals had. The battlefield shifted. The hierarchy bent, and he never went back to being ignored again. Here is your protocol. 30 days, broken into rhythm. Day 1 through 7, micro-signals. Control your posture. Control your timing. Control your silence. Choose what you wear. Choose when you arrive. Choose who you stand beside. At week's end, measure one thing. Did someone treat you differently? Did their tone shift? If yes, you're on track. If no, sharpen harder. Day 8 through 14, systemize. Write your rules. Payment before favors. Deadlines before promises. Automate your boundaries, so you no longer bleed energy negotiating with leeches. The sheep beg for exceptions. The wolf enforces without words. Day 15 through 21, decisive strike. One clean action that changes the balance. Quit the toxic circle. End the stale arrangement. Cut one tie you've known was weakening you. No threats. No build-up. Just the slam of a door. The silence of an ending. Power echoes in finality. Day 22 through 30, silent dominance. Withhold your praise. Place allies quietly. Vanish at peaks. Let the room miss you. Let the room wonder where you went. And when the spotlight turns, you return only with results. At the end of 30 days, you'll feel the shift. Not in applause, not in noise, in how others orbit you. They'll lean, they'll defer, they'll obey, but remember, this is not decoration. This is survival. The wolves are already circling, and if you stand still, you will be devoured. Begin today. Your first signal at day 7 will tell you if you're worthy. The wolves are waiting, but you are no sheep. Choose survival. Someone will rule you. Choose which face you prefer looking at. That's the brutal truth. You are either the wielder of the chain or the neck beneath it. There is no middle ground. Every man you pass today has already chosen to be dangerous or to be used. And the world doesn't reward hesitation. It punishes it. I remember watching one man choose. He wasn't loud. He wasn't violent. He was ordinary, almost invisible, but one day he acted. He cut ties, changed his stance, refused to bow, and in a single moment everything bent around him. His enemies recoiled. His allies reassembled. His silence grew heavier than another man's speech. That day he stopped being prey. This is what Machiavelli tried to carve into the bones of his readers. Power is not given. Power is not found. Power is chosen. Chosen through disciplined acts that cannot be reversed, through ruthlessness that feels cold, but burns hotter than rage, through silence that weighs more than thunder. You stand at that same choice. Right now. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel ready, because the wolves are not waiting for your courage. They're already testing your fence, already circling your camp, already measuring how much meat you'll surrender before you fight. So I'll ask you once, which side are you on? Will you become dangerous, a man others think twice before crossing? Or will you be used, drained, forgotten, another silent casualty in the graveyard of indecision? Type, I choose survival if you see the truth, because the wolves are waiting. But you are no sheep. Choose survival. Words without action are tombstones of better men. Every promise you whisper to yourself and never keep becomes another marker in a graveyard of wasted potential. While you polish intentions, someone else takes your place. Someone weaker, louder, hungrier. Right now they are eating what you were meant to have. I have a ritual. Each night before the world drags me into noise, I sharpen discipline in silence. One page of notes. One brutal inventory of what I did and what I will do. One small decisive act that signals tomorrow will not own me. I will own it. Night after night, ritual compounds into habit. Habit compounds into authority. Habit becomes a ledger the world cannot ignore. Machiavelli warned, habits harden into law. The man who yields to ritual shapes destiny. The man who drifts becomes driftwood, pushed, used, forgotten. Even family will bargain with your patience if you let them. Even friends will take advantage if you habitually forgive. Betrayal tastes familiar. Betrayal repeats. Betrayal wins where rituals fail. This is the initiation. This is not a like or a follow. This is your first oath. Type in the comments, I refuse to be ruled. Say it like a signature. Seal it with action. Subscribe not as a pastime, as enrollment. Each week a dossier arrives. Tactical lessons, clinical and ruthless. Enlist or be enrolled by others. Share this with one man who still believes fairness will save him. Drag him to shore or watch him drown. The choice is yours. Download the 30-day Machiavelli protocol in the description. Start tonight. Start with one page, one act, one ritual. 3, 2, 1. Implement now. You take one step toward power and the world rearranges itself around you. One gesture of discipline, one ritual kept, and suddenly the air shifts. Eyes that once dismissed you begin to linger. I remember week 2. A man who never noticed me asked my opinion. He didn't know why. He only felt the shift. Power radiates even in silence. Machiavelli whispered the truth. Power is not a peak you climb once. It is a living thing. It grows when fed. It mutates when neglected. Feed it and it becomes a blade no rival can touch. Leave it hungry and it withers into regret. This is no ending. It is the first fracture. The first whisper, because what comes next is darker and more precise. Would you know the ally who will one day stab you? Would you dismantle a charismatic rival without lifting a hand? Would you watch your enemies unravel while the world believes it was fate? Type, I choose survival, if that truth presses against your chest. Speak it, keep it, act on it. Next, cut the forbidden art. How to neutralize a charismatic enemy without drawing blood. The wolves are waiting, but you are no sheep. Choose survival. Power is not a crown. It is not granted. It is carved in silence, in discipline, in ruthless acts no one can reverse. Tonight you decide. Remain prey, or step forward as predator. The world will not wait. The wolves are already circling. But remember this, you are no sheep. Choose survival.